Well, I don't know about that. What I think we would be looking to mostly is to change the town bylaws in West Newbury so that it would become a law in West Newbury that they would need to, John Eric always used the example of sort of putting a roof over the manure pile so that it doesn't have so much runoff and those sorts of things, right? But that would be West Newbury changing West Newbury's law for our benefit, their ultimate benefit as well, right? So that's a great example of somewhere we're really going to need to coordinate and work well together to be able to achieve the goal.
And on that note, or you go first.
Okay, I was gonna say as a follow-on question. You said the increase at 6 times the treatment.
Yeah, we treated them 6 times this year. We have never treated them more than 3 before this year.
And homologist went back to the phosphorus.
One of the major problems is the phosphorus is really feeding the algae, right?
Which goes back to the question about people around the area, other farms, has there an influx in fertilizer use or animal?
I'm not a limnologist by any stretch of the imagination, but sort of my take on the perspective on the whole thing is first and foremost, the upper and lower artichokes, they are flooded farm property, right? So they were not dug. So there's all kinds of biomass at the bottom in those sediments to start with. And then there are a lot of horse farms in particular, but there are also, I believe, some cattle farms along the way in there too, right? So that is adding to the nutrient load. There's also tons of geese in those, there's lots of places where this nutrient load is coming from. But I think, reading between the lines on what the limnologist said, much better if she were here to say this, but I think there's some concern that the algae themselves are resistant to the treatments that we're currently doing. And so this alum treatment that we're considering have no option but to do in the spring. So it's my understanding a lot about this, but it's my understanding what happens is it comes down and it caps essentially the sediment. It binds it, yeah. But so it binds the phosphorus at the bottom. So it's not stopping anything else from flowing in, right? But at least is binding the phosphorus that's there in the sediment. And that hopefully will buy us 3 years while we try to figure out our emissions. But
the contributing factor is to the phosphorus is it's hot, it's getting hotter.
Exactly. They're shallow, as there's drought, there's between drought, increased temperature, all of those things are making it that much easier for the algae to grow. And so, yes, we need to manage the nutrient loading, but we also need other strategies. And ultimately, that's where dredging really comes into play, and taking up the sediment that's there. But we really need from the lower artichoke. Well, we'd be taking our water from the lower artichoke and dredging it at the same time, which is not good.
Are they was the consideration to dredge the upper or the lower artichoke?
Both. I think probably if we had to choose one or the other, it would be the lower for today, but certainly both. They're both flooded farms.
You would choose the lower because that's where you currently draw water from, or okay?
I mean, if we had
more exposed to seawater lines.
Both, but if we, if you're asking Connie Preston's opinion, I think the dam is the very first thing. We do the dam tomorrow to be able to protect the lower because that's the only place we're pulling water from today, right? And then if we have to break it into phases, we do the water line from the upper to the Storia pump station so that we can bypass the lower if we absolutely have to. But, we really need Indian Hill in case the upper has a problem. But we also really need this water treatment facility because we have a PFAS requirement,
And the new water treatment facility will treat algae as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would have granulated activated carbon.
How many wells do we have? And some of them are closed down, right?
We have 2, correct, John Eric? He's maybe the better person here.
Yeah.
2.
The only thing that's closed is Bartlett's, right? And that's the surface. It's a spring, but it ends up in a surface water supply. At the end of Spring Lane, that little water body.
On the bottom.
It has PFAS in it though, so
Yeah, at the bottom of next to the treatment plant.
Oh, okay.
It's a very smaller than a football field. That's a fraction of what we use, but that shut down because of high PFAS levels.
And there's no opportunity for more wells.
That's,
It is also one of the things that we're recommending in the report is that the city look for other opportunities. It actually just came up in the meeting yesterday for the first time I've ever heard this is, you know, the potential to try to dig wells around the reservoirs, which would help us get by, you know, well, try to have wells around the reservoirs, which would bypass the algae problems and all those sorts of things. But that is also a recommendation in the report is that we do have to start looking for other measures.
Question about this might be off topic a little bit, but the Bartlett Pond, that's closed because of high PFAS levels. If that's a spring, where do you think those PFAS levels are coming?
I believe you'd have to ask Pete,
Yeah,
but I thought that there was something with, something with, training, the fire suppression system. I thought there was something about training. I don't want to
yeah,
get off, you know,
okay,
out of my lane,
'cause
but
that's odd.
there's something about
place
that.
over there.
Yeah.
Interesting,
But also the Arrowhead Farm
yeah,
had issues. Don't know about PFAS, if that was their issue,
okay.
but they brought in there was some problems related to that. Even when we're well from the Bartlett
It
Springs.
seems like none of that should be
Yeah.
happening in like a water supply watershed.
It's a great question, and because otherwise PFAS comes from, does come from the air.
Yeah, but not enough.
Not what we're talking about.
What is
Sorry,
it?
if I could just chime in, the regulations part of it is something that we've talked about a couple of times with the adjacent community with West Newbury. Several times in the IMA was brought up as, you know, being of concern, some of that going back to discussion about rates, and which is a different discussion in my view as a land use planner. But, you know, trying to protect the water supply for like should be a discrete issue, and everybody has the same thing to keep things out of the water supply, you know, aquifer area. But at the same time, we do need to update those regulations on both sides. And one of the things that we had talked about with DPS was, I think it comes with the other community working with us in parallel, but proposing new regulations for the entire watershed protection area that, you know, to the extent we can without violating federal laws, prohibits anything that's, you know, even putting aside the discussion of chemicals and federal, state, and local control, to basically say you can't do certain things in that area. And some folks may take issue with that based on what they've been doing with their properties, and we have to have that discussion. But it behooves all of us to do those updates and to actually see what's happening in the field to make sure people aren't, you know, contributing to for other.
Yeah. I will say one other place that it really touches with West Newbury, and John Eric's really working on this one, is with the dam at the lower Artichoke. You know, if we were to just sort of dam off the lower Artichoke, we could essentially be putting West Newbury's wells even more at risk because they would now be, you know, downstream of that the dam, right? So we're certainly trying to coordinate with West Newbury around their wells that are there as well. So
Yeah, and just, their well field right now is exposed to a backwater bay.
for sure, yeah,
Just to.
we would just be
Just
making
to
it a
be
bit,
clear,
we would be making it worse,
we do not want to make it worse.
Yeah.
That is correct.
depending on how we build the dam. The dam could be potentially.
Depending on what you do, yeah.
And the reason why it would be worse is I think I understand, would be because, you would essentially be closing the valve. The valve is the current dam, the current spillway into your reservoir. You close that valve off and now the water has to go somewhere, the
Yeah.
backwater that comes up and,
Yeah.
you know, now go.
The water that we would be retaining out of the lower Artichoke
It's gonna
would be
flow
going
somewhere.
somewhere, yes,
Yeah.
it's gonna flow to where the well is.
No,
It's definitely, there are no easy solutions on any of this. If, you know, probably 100 hours of work on this over the last little while has proven anything, none of this is easy.
So for our group, yeah, hopefully the new ad hoc is formed, and hopefully the Resiliency is represented myself or someone else continues to be involved with that. I think the working group with West Newbury and possibly Newbury is so important, and hopefully, I'm sure some of us just in our roles, your roles as city staff to be involved in that. Something else that's come out of it is, it's just the Water and Sewer Commission, you know, much higher profile of what's really going on in terms of not only resiliency, but a lot of other, you know, just the urgency of certain projects over others. You attended the last meeting too, and Kim. And we talked very, very briefly about more communication between this committee and the Water and Sewer Commission. Haven't pursued that yet, but I imagine perhaps, one of us can sit down in their meetings more, and they can hopefully have representation here. Kim and I can as well, because I think that we can all learn from each other. And there's been an acknowledgement that, yeah, there's some issues that maybe haven't been addressed as well as they could, or as upfront as they could have been. And there's a better way of doing it. So.
I have one, just one, that was good.
Yeah.
And this is a segue, one word of caution. We all think we have like the answer for like what we want. But this group, you guys were all very active, pushing our agenda. Here, continue to do that. Be careful pushing too much on something that in reality may be less beneficial. For instance, bylaws of West Newbury. Changing the bylaws of West Newbury is going to be extremely difficult because of the property owners. The point taken, if this group concentrates on pushing that agenda, what it does is it gets the other side upset. We need to work with them even before anything's done, cover those manure piles. And I'm only looking at you as the chair of this group, that's how. Cover those manure piles. We don't need a watershed protection bylaw in West Newbury to do that. So the bylaw is very important, but it's gonna be hard.
I think it's really starts out with, and Rick's been coming to these meetings, thank you very much, and I know Sarah has it on occasion anyway, gone to their West Newbury's Resiliency Committee, but it's really just all sorts of discussions and talking, and what came out of the ad hoc committee for me was, it's really important as a partnership. So it's not us telling them, it's not, we don't have the answer. There's a lot of history there, and they need something out of the deal too, basically, so I think it's a lot of talking and a lot of understanding and a lot of listening. So it's really listening and then talking. So yeah, I wouldn't want to go into any of this, anyone to go in and say, this is what has got to happen.
Yeah.
And let's get that done.
It's also a lot slower across the town line and town meeting.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
you have
very.
way less opportunity than working with the council,
Yeah.
So.
And then the other thing that came out of this is, whenever one of us made a comment, people tend to jump on that as being correct.
Mhm.
And none of us nothing's absolute. So when people say the water treatment plant checks all the boxes, it does. But we really need to push our consultant, because if you have really thick algae, you're gonna be cleaning the filters all day long. So yes, it does, but there's an asterisk. I mean,
It's always more complicated.
there's always more. This just touched, it's a tip of the iceberg. Excellent job, Icona. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And the report's really well done. But there's still, it's a moving target. Any project that we build is gonna affect another one that might not be needed. And that won't be determined until we progress.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Yeah, I actually touched a good point. I meant to say, if anybody wants to see the report, I'm more than happy to share it with you. It's a Google Doc, so I can just share the link with you. Just send me an email and I'll send it. And as I mentioned, it is going to be in the council packet, so they'll also be online with the council packet coming tomorrow.
Is there any discussion about monitoring, like the new treatment for it? I know it's factored into the cost,
5
right?
years.
And,
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years, yeah, there's a process that needs to be followed, so you need like a pilot program first, then you get into this. They have what's called SLR, which is like a 0% interest rate loan, so you have to do certain steps in order to get to the next step, but according to the consultant, from now until actual opening, so it would be for 5 years.
But that's, again, as I said, that's why one of our biggest recommendations is to drive to design on all of this, right? Like start understanding true costs, true timelines, true permitting challenges, those sorts of things, so that we have a really good understanding of this.
Do we have an idea
Yeah.
of costs and funding sources for a new treatment plant like this? Are we already working on that?
Yeah, so we're working with a consultant. A lot of the consultants work with folks that will model the finances for you. so that we have a better understanding of what the needs would need to change in order to support, again, hopefully this 0% interest
Yeah.
bond.
Yeah.
But yes, they're working, the consultant that we're working with is doing one, is it?
Ipswich.
Ipswich right now, that went through the exact same process.
And they're building theirs for 50 million, but it's a smaller plant. So back of the envelope for sure, but based on real data in the area, we think about 60 million.
And are we assuming that we are gonna be starting that 5-year countdown process now, like it's going through?
Yeah, we've already been
Straight.
talking to the
Okay.
consultant, to get us going for this pilot project or whatever. So yes, the balls are already rolling here.
And I think probably importantly to understand is right next to the existing facility is a plot of land meant to build a new facility. So we don't have the challenge of finding a space and all those sorts of things. So that's a huge benefit for us.
That is the-
Yeah. It's literally right next, same piece of property.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have something?
Yeah, two things. One was, everything the state is pushing for regional plans. So I think that's another reason to pull West Newbury and maybe MVPC into this as a reform. For grants or other things that get a lot more weight with that. And the other one is, remember last year we had 883,000 earmarked for the Indian Head design? Where is that?
You want to ask?
That it's been rerouted to Historia Pump Station for the construction. Which is part of the whole, that was why the name change happened, to call it the Indian Hill Pump Station, because it's all part of the same project. But it meant we were able to use that 800,000 to get the pump station.
Which is happening this year.
I'm just gonna throw out a real wild thought.
We love wild
And-
thoughts.
And you can just dismiss this and assume that I'm crazy.
That's quite an entry.
And this is something that will probably not happen in any of our lifetimes. I think that what we ought to be thinking about and trying to drive to is a regional water system that crosses the river between Newburyport and Amesbury or Salisbury, and crosses the river again at Haverhill, because it already does cross the river there. And that there should be a large system contributed to by all the sources that currently exist and maybe additional future sources that all the communities benefit from. So I just want to throw that out. That's really isn't relevant to this conversation, but that I think would.
Are you saying that, and if I may just ask you a question, do you mean it as interconnects for emergencies or one treatment facility?
Maybe a district, maybe one district. If nothing else, it should be interconnects.
Yeah.
I just, I've had a conversation with a couple other people, and it sounds crazy, and maybe it is, but everybody, almost without exception, everybody has problems with water.
Yeah.
And if we were able to, mitigate our individual problems by combining whatever strengths there are, I think everybody would benefit long term.
Where do we cross the river?
Sarah, Andy had a question. Oh, you're all set.
Now, see, I just gonna get that fixed.
Yeah, well, Haverhill currently, I'm pretty certain, transferred water across the river. I don't know where their pipe is, but, they have a water system.
I wanna say
that-
they share with
that-
Work. I'm not sure.
They do, actually, they do, but, so, Haverhill has, reservoirs on the north side of the river. And they have a treatment plant, I think, maybe on the south side of the river.
Yeah.
I don't believe there are two,
Sounds like something NDPC should put together.
Right, well, and I actually had a sort of, I think I rolled this idea out to George.
Yeah.
Once, just lightly in conversation, but didn't really take it very far, and we're not gonna solve this here.
No.
All I'm saying is that if there was a circuit and it went all the way around, and like in the circuit, you'd have flow in either direction.
We did touch on it, not that, and not at that scope, but in the ad hoc committee, just
Yeah.
talking about possible, connecting, interconnection with
Yep.
Amesbury, but also Salisbury, and do we go under the road? So in the future, I think things are gonna have to be more regional because we're all having our own issues. So in the back of our heads.
Sorry, I appreciate the idea. I think it's a great idea conceptually, particularly in terms of like backup or availability of water generally. I also don't think frankly, it's actually somewhat, if you think about long-term, inconsistent and long-term sustainability for everybody involved. Including both really friendly communities to assume, again, we're gonna get water somewhere else or from some other new source. We cannot grow indefinitely and keep looking, but we have to recognize there are certain limitations. And so other than the now cost, and it's very extremely difficult to try to get something like that, to work with multiple communities over an extended period of time, which is great. Other than having sort of a backup if one community has an issue, but the other ones don't necessarily. I think that's extremely complicated to get that to work at the end of the day, and I also think it'd be better, in light of all that difficulty, for us to focus on sustainability within each community independently, for the most part, tying in where there's economic, balance between the cost of doing the connection, the political difficulties or regulatory difficulties or, administrative difficulties of getting the legislative votes and then all that kind of stuff. I think it's a great idea, but I think we'd be spinning our wheels in a very long-term grandiose game versus something that might be more manageable. A new plant in Newburyport and the protection of the water supply we already have is probably gonna be more realistic and manageable.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. And that's why I led this the way I did. It's a crazy idea, but to me, if we look out 50 years or 75 or 100 years, assuming there's people still here,
We might be somewhere else.
we
Yeah.
we need an overall solution that
Yeah, and everybody,
has multiple levels of resiliency and,
So I would say,
Yeah.
sorry, John Eric, just keeping that as a long-term view. So if we do, if we do connect to Amesbury, just make it in a way that, I can't see any other way to do it, but keeps the possibility open. So let's, in the long term, as we're working years and years down the road, let's not exclude the possibility of connecting regionally. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with water supply is, driving it locally in the watershed is really the way to go. Like, you don't wanna transfer water from one basin to another. That's the big thing Newbury did, and the state prohibited it like decades ago. I remember that they made that change. But I agree with you, like, I think DEP is failing communities. Because I think that DEP should be upfront on top of this, as in like 30 years ago, to help communities manage their water, because each one of us, each community only has so many experts.
Mhm.
They should be at the top going, okay, Ipswich is running out of water because the river, everyone's drawing it from there. And they're just looking at Ipswich, doing nothing. And then you got Newburyport, then you got Amesbury, then you got groundwater, and I think someone told me today, groundwater in Haverhill, I think. It goes on and on and on. They should create regional supplies. But we talked about it with Angus, we talked about it, Connie. I didn't bring it up in this because, it was a huge monkey wrench. We talked about it over the last year. Angus did a thesis on it. And, so there's a community in New Hampshire, I think, that worked off of that and made it successful. But for us, it's a 10-year to get people at the table. It's 20 years to even figure out whose water you're really gonna use.
Yeah.
And we don't have that time. And DEP blew it, in my opinion, because water has been a problem. People know that water was a problem in the 60s and 70s when, the 70s was huge in global warming and, they should. So anyways, I think we're doing the right thing. I think the interconnects are probably the best thing we can do. And then for the regional, we are all gonna be dead on that one. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. It's just so far down the road.
All right, I'm looking at the clock. Anything else on this? Connie, thank you. You have been an amazing advocate for these projects, and you're taking a lot of heat, to be honest.
For sure.
And the way that you persevered and led that committee and buckled down and wrote that report in a very short amount of time. It's a huge impact on the city, for the city.
Huge amount of work. Thank you very much.
And thank you
Really
for.
Yeah. I'm going out with a bang, that's for sure.
Moving to committee updates, and I just want to acknowledge, I didn't put city project updates on this list, but we can talk about them if we need to, if we want to, if we have time.
There's really no change. The ad hoc stopped everything.
Right, yeah, that's what
For
I,
real, I
yeah.
mean,
but it.
my design projects are on hold.
Yeah.
The Indian Hill
Maybe a little speed.
design is on hold. I just want to throw it out. I would.
Anything, with Plum Island though, Plum Island, the flat,
Oh, yeah.
Newbury,
You want to update that? Sure.
do you have one? If not,
We met with the regulators. And, Julie, you would have loved to have been there.
God, I missed it.
Yeah, I'm sure you're sad. It's no different than what we expected. Do not touch salt marsh. Mitigating it is going to be impossible because mitigating salt marsh
can't.
in the Great Marsh, the only land left is upland.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take an upland.
Yeah.
Which we don't. So at the end of the day, we met with them hoping, please, climate change is coming. We just take, 10,000 square feet. The numbers that you guys were talking about are, like 100,000 square feet for the whole turnpike. Because it's a slow creep of 5 feet times 2 miles. And it's
We already
just,
knew that horizontal expansion there.
it's
Right.
just
not
so
gonna be
much.
feasible.
Right.
We have to work
We
within
knew
the
that.
space. We have.
Even cantilevering stuff, like,
No,
Why did it-
and we know that. And we were hoping that years later, because they went through it with Argilla Road, in Ipswich. And that project got stopped and they didn't finish the permitting. They're still fighting it. CZM won't allow them to raise the road
Yeah.
because this impacts Selmarsh.
Yeah.
This is a study that was for transportation reasons to keep the gatehouse open at the refuge.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Yeah.
We knew that we couldn't do anything as soon as the project started,
Yeah.
but then there was hope, maybe they'll change their mind. They did not.
Their mind about what though? Not the resource area
Well,
impacts. That's
No,
not
no.
gonna change.
No, I personally thought that in this day and age, with seas rising, I really did think,
But to be honest.
Me-
I did, I really thought
Oh,
that.
okay.
Oh, say
I
what?
did not see I did not see the environmental agency saying, yes, we can widen all that roadway.
to be honest,
Space.
yeah.
And they're holding the ground. I was hoping that they would.
Julia?
I sort of feel like for their perspective right now, CZM and DEP on something like this, they're coming at this big picture statewide from an angle of they'd rather see retreat than provide additional access for the
Right,
future
right,
to
yeah.
these areas. That is not what they want at all. So,
And there's no place to mitigate or you can't do a replication.
yeah, they're not gonna
That's-
budge on it.
Replication.
Right. So,
Yeah.
because the study was created with a grant that the feds wanted access to it. We
Oh, no.
we
Right.
played along.
We had to do
We
it.
played
It
along.
was working within the program
Yeah,
available.
we played along.
Yeah.
We knew what
Good
the
answer,
outcome was gonna be.
actually.
You end up with walls. They don't want walls, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we tried, according to the feds, said, add pedestrian access, improve the local accessibility, and then see where you go, because that was the flat grant, improve accessibility.
Yeah.
We're at the bike, so what they said in the regular fair meeting. Bike lanes, we really can't take Salvage for a bike lane, so it defunct, the whole project.
But
It's-
it's good. We
know the
it
answer.
helps to
Did we ever
indicate
give
what
it-
our
Yeah.
options are.
It
It's
gives
nice
us
to get that
a
answer,
very
yeah.
important answer, because we've been talking for a long time about this and saying, oh, it's gonna be fine, we know we can raise the turnpike if we need to. No, apparently we
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
answer that we have.
You know what I
and we
mean?
needed it.
This actually shortens our time
It
frame
helps
for
with
out
other
there.
areas
a
of
lot.
question, yeah. Know how to-
So we won't get a bike path. We're putting together options, our consultants put together options right now. We're doing 3 options. I think it's waste time. I'm not gonna go there. It's something that we have to finish. It's a grant that we have.
I think it's helpful to know the question because it's a legitimate question and it's one that people want to ask and we need to answer the question about whether it's feasible and how much. So I definitely think it's worthwhile. As an
Yeah,
exercise
so,
to do.
and the other thing I wanna
I just
finish
think
for
we're
the
gonna
true
get
update for the project was that once we get these 3 options,
Yeah.
because we heard back from them, whatever, there's still an option of mitigating the salt marsh, even though it's a low hole. Very, very, I mean, I wouldn't even do that. The consultant wants to do it. I feel like it's a waste of time.
Are they looking at, given that it's access, are they looking at, like boat access
Yeah.
ferry.
Sure.
Because honestly, the island of Plum Island could just be that one day. Are there, that's not included in
This
there?
was just simple low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
how to raise the road for the refuge gatehouse.
Right,
Getting to the refuge gatehouse, there's no boat access over there.
no, you're right. But once you get to the island,
You could go
I
around.
think, cause this just gets everybody to the island, no matter where they're going.
But this is also, if the headquarters itself was on the island, this wouldn't be, like, this grant or program wouldn't
Wouldn't
be in
be
play. It would
looking
be,
at.
it's really just because the facility that runs the refuge is on the mainland, right?
It's actually great that we got the grant to do this.
It's helpful for us
Yeah.
to know that, you know, we're.
So we
I
have,
would
we have
like
a
to
public meeting coming up, we have a
Okay.
public meeting come up, we're gonna do that. Right now, they're putting together those 3 concepts, finish up the slideshow, and we're planning, you know, this group will be invited, obviously. I think, you went to the couple of them, didn't you? Who went to the last public meeting?
Sarah and I.
Definitely Sarah and you, but did you go?
Who's the partner?
I wasn't in
Yeah.
No.
So we're gonna be doing another one.
Right.
And essentially, we're gonna give them an update that we gathered your information from the first one. Here's what we got. And we finish up the report and we should be done by March.
I think it's really important that we have that answer, because I think that's gonna play into a lot of future regulatory considerations and work for the
Yeah.
city. And so I think that actually should be try to get out in front of people, like,
Yeah.
this should be a
For
public,
people to
when
understand
it's
the
done, say,
implications.
hey, you know,
Yeah.
this is just having it publicly available, let's not lose it.
I actually think it would be very interesting to combine that report or boil that down with the, however bogus they were, results of that
Yes.
MVP study that we
Yes,
did
exactly.
on the economic impacts of future of the Plum Island.
Right.
Right.
Yes, because that
Part
gave a
of
very
that
clear
was-
timeline on when it stops making sense to invest in things like elevating the roadway.
Yeah, they did the graph where, you know,
Yeah,
It was 2050.
it was 2050.
Yeah.
ish, and they're right, and
where
so,
that intersection happens.
but now we can say, look, we looked at that, now we're looking at one of the possibilities that we would have invested in to get us to 2050 or whatever that is. We can't even do that.
But also, even if we could do it from a regulatory perspective, just the cost then, right? You estimate in
Yeah.
either study, probably, right? I mean, the first one you mentioned, right?
Yep,
The numbers are just astronomical to try to do the work, you know,
Right.
from a cost perspective.
Yep.
Proportionally to what you're getting out of it, you still have that same discussion about, is it a treat or is it, you know, or is status quo versus
right.
something new that's impacting resource areas and, you know,
Yeah.
displacing floodwater.
What makes it cost prohibitive? The mitigation of the.
Yeah, well, again, it was a cursory review, but I don't know what they go for numbers now, but the actual cost of the construction work itself, materials and whatnot, and all that, never mind the actual resource area impacts, so you have
Yeah.
to consider replication as part of that too, which where we put it. But they were just estimating ballpark back and then after costs for the actual work based on like the roadway.
And the costs were compared against the economic
Oh,
value,
you're talking about.
yes.
The older,
Plum Island.
yeah.
And
All right.
Also,
Yeah.
there's gonna be, at that time, whenever it be needed, competing interests with the wastewater treatment.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, that's gonna
Yeah.
have to get relocated.
Yeah, right,
And,
yeah, right.
And Andy, those costs, just for people to know, if anyone goes back to that Horsley Witten, they compared costs with,
If anyone can find it.
like, a viaduct down the Chesapeake Bay. They compared it to projects,
Honestly, I wouldn't-
huge interstate highway projects.
Yeah.
Huge,
I think
$60 million
the
projects.
numbers,
that
I think, were a little higher than they
completely
needed to be,
not
however,
even
they're still
related.
gonna be huge numbers.
Not even related,
And I
yeah.
agree with you on that.
Yeah, just for everyone to know.
I agree.
That's all.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna skip around a bit just to get to sort of the meat of some stuff. So, don't what?
Ask him any more questions.
I just vote now.
Please do recognize it.
MVP Scudato, is there any action needed required within the committee right now?
Our
Or
first
just an
meeting
update.
is December 9th. Next week is the first 14 meeting that will be led by Peyton, who's the equity partner, and then Lemonade Solutions, who's the vendor we selected for actually carrying out the planning process. So yeah, we'll know more after that.
Alright, note that. Let's do Sarah, let's do the MVP, the Cashman Park grant and what you sent out.
Right, so the feedback, I said it in the email, but the feedback that we got, from Last year's submission was, we weren't selected, but we could make our application stronger if we had more community, tie-in and leverage some of the learnings from our last MVP action grant, which was a community action project. So they wanted us to pull in partners and have them as part of our grant application. So this is all MVP, CZM, all of those grants are now on this timeline as part of the UCO one, which means they have to be submitted by January. So we're on a very short time frame, and if we want to do that, and I'm not sure we have time, the city has time to do that MVP project again. But if we want to do it, we need to go on that outreach and find some partners and get their letters and get them as part of that package for January.
Is the ECO one job, January deadline, is that for just, I thought that was like letters of interest for all
No,
the
the
projects?
letters of interest is already by.
That's already passed.
This
So
is the
this is the
application.
actual applications.
It is expedited.
And did we
We would-
submit letters of interest?
We did for, the wastewater treatment walls.
Yep.
Sidewalls and
Artichoke,
And Cashman and
Cashman.
and then, trees.
And they responded back with the same feedback, or did?
No, I haven't heard.
I haven't heard anything.
I thought the whole
We
idea was
got-
they were supposed to respond back after that.
I know, we haven't.
Does everybody understand what the assumption is for the
Yeah.
application? That would be. Sorry.
For Cashman, it would basically be the same thing as.
Same thing
we
as
did for
we did.
Enhanced with these community partners.
Yeah.
So I have an answer, for Julia. So you're asking if, there's feedback after the letter? of
Yeah.
interest? There is,
Okay,
for the dam and trees.
yeah.
You did get them.
We
We
got,
have them.
we received the email from them asking us to set up a time.
Oh.
They gave us, like 5 dates, December 5th, I think was the first. So it hasn't happened yet. Kim submitted a letter of interest. She, I believe, is gonna attend. What's she grab?
Nancy.
Thank you. She didn't grab Pete King. I was
This is
thinking
for
more
the,
technical.
this is for the dam?
This is for the dam. So
Okay.
she is Nancy is gonna do the feedback,
Okay,
the letter of interest to answer your question.
okay. On Cashman,
But
I'm
we
just,
didn't.
yeah, we didn't get feedback.
About trees.
All I'm saying is,
For the dam.
I don't even understand the process because
Yeah.
there's a letter of interest and then there's a
Right.
feedback meeting, which I don't
Right.
understand because
Right.
it's just a letter. So I
No,
assume that,
No, they would
They
give
were-
us the city feedback on the letter,
On the letter.
in order to.
Determine which.
So what,
To apply.
what of those 7 programs would
Oh,
be best?
it's our
applied
feedback.
to?
Yeah.
It's feedback
This isn't
to
one of
us.
those feedback, you know, you get rejected
Yeah,
and then you hear the
Yeah.
feedback from the.
This is to strengthen your
Yeah.
application for January.
yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
It's a good thing.
This
Yeah.
is like to say, oh, of these letters of interest that you've
Yeah.
supplied, we think maybe this one,
Yeah.
this one, and this one, if you tweak here and here,
Yeah.
should be the ones you submit,
Very good.
kind of thing. And my feeling on Cashman is that maybe we put it off if other ones are higher priority or whatever, but there are some things falling apart at Cashman that need to be addressed. And we have the application 90% done. And they've already seen it and said that it could be improved with a few things.
Yeah.
Can we just write it? Can Nancy just like sort of
What's
give
the
lip service
funding
to
amount,
that?
The timeframe for use for funds for that one?
That would be,
MVP action, it was a 1-year
Yeah.
grant, that was submitted last time.
Okay, so for the
And it was-
participation, sort of, any schematics or so that's what we have a year to do that process, right?
It was a feasibility study.
Yeah,
However,
With-
for the feedback that we
with total.
received from MVP, this isn't part of this, the expression of interest, but this is because we applied last year, we already received feedback for Cashman.
yeah,
It was, we need to do more outreach beforehand, before we apply, to
Right.
identify nonprofit or other partners in the community.
Right.
That would be part
Part of
of
it.
this
I
application.
thought we had
That's
like
like-
youth soft, I thought we had like a whole assortment already in there.
No, no,
We
no,
listed them. but
They want
wanna see them
identified and
part of the
committed.
grant. They wanna see them have concrete proposals that are part of the grant.
how
Either
much
for,
money do they give us? What's that?
well, the application was for like 270,000, I think.
For the
it
whole-
was
for
an
the
action
270 for the process. Oh, that's what I'm saying. is
Feasibility.
It's it's not for a shovel ready plan for.
No,
it's
about the
This is
feasibility
actually-
study.
What can you do?
Working with
what can
Woods
you
Hole, that's
do
what we.
over the next N years, in phases. What can you do in 10 years, 20
Right.
years, 50
Yeah.
years?
Well, I'm sorry, but that's that amount of money being spent in a year?
The feasibility, for a feasibility study to give us a plan for
Okay.
what to do at Cashman
Okay,
in phases.
Okay.
But this would just be the feasibility study, them to look at the whole situation out there and give us a plan for what they would see us doing
Got
to manage it long term. And they're saying they want to see more direct connection with community groups in the application. I'm just wondering, because it's a feasibility study being done, like, I don't get what they really want us to put in. It's so odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
they
that's
want to
the
be able
point.
to say in this, it's not actually irrelevant or necessary here in Sun City proper,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Engage folks, which we're doing. as
Which
part of
we've
the process
already,
anyway.
yeah,
But they want to be able to check a box and say, there's a whole bunch of community folks already, engaged, it's embedded, that's what they're looking for, and unfortunately scrambling to try to do that. I do think
what
the
if it's
idea,
like letters of
it's ready to
support?
go, so to speak,
Yeah,
like someone would have to.
letters
scramble
of
to get those
support
letters.
will not, it's not as good as a written commitment of what a partner could
So the
contribute,
example they gave
and
was
they will be
pay.
reimbursed.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they can contribute. That's my problem.
So that the example they gave was Paula Estes group and have them submit as part of the grant that they would do advocacy to pull communities, community participation in, they would maybe help handle that aspect of the grant. As an example, could be other ways they could contribute, but they want to see it. They want to see us doing that community outreach as part of every correction grant now, basically.
And Sarah listed some
They're having
examples.
to
in
get
that.
all that,
Yeah.
the letter, and we're not gonna be able to probably do that in the time frame necessary for the
Not right
application
now.
itself. They're not asking us to say, we'll do that as part of the project, they're saying, do that for the application. like they said.
And that's essentially what Sarah and I and a few others did for our last MVP grant.
Which is,
So
why don't
even-
they accept that?
I
know.
Wow, we kind of started a trend here and now we're being.
Well,
We shot ourselves in the foot.
MVP 2.0 is all that again, so
Yeah.
this is what we're learning for future MVP grants, this needs to be.
Get the same group to
incorporated.
basically say, we'll participate in the process,
If you had read, if Sarah put together a sheet that I sent out on sort of an outreach letter, what I'm wondering is, I don't think it'll take a lot of time to contact those that we already contacted. How many do we really want?
Right.
We want quality quality really participatory. We don't want to have to hold hands too much because we've learned that it's a work.
Ooh, hard to send it a lot.
That even, that percent even happens.
So
2 or 3.
I think the feedback that we're looking for is really, yes, this is the direction we want to go in terms of, are we going to submit an MVP
Yeah.
grant for Cashman?
Yeah.
And then an idea of how many partners we're looking for,
Yeah.
and what would be most
Letter of
effective.
Support, a letter of participation, right, anticipated participation,
Yeah.
be routed around, it simplifies like a 1 or 2 page thing, right? It has a signatory spot for all those folks, right, it's right around quickly, we ask those folks, the selected, it's not the entire group maybe of that, but it's the entire group we started with, maybe 2 others of them, discussed. See if they can agree to sign on to it in short order, if they can, then maybe makes sense to take the application and submit it and try to get that going and work with it. But if we can't get that from that group, then that's kind of indicative that we're not gonna get
Yeah.
the grant, I think, anyway. because-
Well, we don't know, but yeah, it could be stronger is the way it was put, and this is how it could be strong. This is one of the main reasons.
So it was ranked fairly high, for a few areas you didn't get the top marks in, here's how you could raise your marks in those areas.
Okay.
So truly, I think it's sending that out to our, the group that we want to.
Yeah.
And seeing what feedback we receive,
Mhm.
and
I'm
then
just
just
wondering,
include
with
it.
everything else the city's doing,
Yes.
if we get this grant, are we gonna ever do anything with this study?
Do we have, does the city have time to do it?
I would,
We don't have the money,
I was wondering.
We will have the money.
no, for the construction.
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
Yeah.
Relative
I'm not trying to be.
in priority and
It's
not.
definitely
Well,
not,
connection
has
grant.
higher priorities, some of these other
Right.
things we've been talking
I
about.
can't speak for the administration and, council, obviously, that's another, some discussion, but I do think overall it would be beneficial to the process everything we're trying to do here. Because I do think that's a great location to be doing a, community engagement more so because, on the flip side, it doesn't actually have the complexities of like, in some of the locations that we would have, it's a public space that people want to preserve as a public space, we're not necessarily taking away the recreational component or adaptively, using it, they're gonna see changes that aren't gonna be probably hugely offensive, to the community. But it's also very engaging in understanding things like sea level rise and climate change and the impacts that we're gonna have to adapt to on the coast, all the entire coastline. So
Right.
to me, I think there's some benefit, like proportionally in doing that and getting it, and to me, I think we already, at least I are sort of the continuation of the MVP 2.0 process we were doing, we might be tracking there anyway. That might be a location that we do it in, and I have no objection to another project or area. But I think that's a decent one to do for some of those reasons.
Can this be our 2.0 community project, C project?
And well, the budget for this one,
250,000.
Woods Hole came back and said $270,000 for the study, and 2.0 C project was 50.
I mean, we could sort of like say, all right, this is gonna be, we have a little bit of a headache about this right now. We don't really know what they want. We don't have a lot of time. Talk to Woods Hole and say, look, this is the feedback that we got from MVP from the last one. What do you see as a good role for 2 to 3 community groups? How would they want them inserted in the grant? Because they're gonna be managing the grant.
Yeah,
And then they can sort of give us a little scope of work for like 2 or 3 groups or whatever, and we can then find those groups. Because right now I feel like we're all very confused about what it is that they're after and what we could actually have them do.
Yeah.
I might have
I
an
like that.
answer, part of that.
Yeah,
The feedback meeting that I talked about was an email relative to the dam.
Mhm.
What you guys submitted for the letter of interest for Cashman, it's the same program, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I read that email again today. This feedback, they want all your city projects to
At the
be in the
same
same feedback meeting. So whoever submitted it, you guys have to, whoever it is, you guys have to meet with Ken, talk about the dam, talk about Cashman, and you got 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that email?
No, I
I did-
haven't, and I'm a
Okay.
little alarmed that we haven't been
Send it.
told about it.
No, I'll send it to you right now.
But,
I didn't
yeah,
know
the
that
feedback
you
that
guys-
we received
Yeah.
was before that, because we had already applied last year, and so that's where we're running.
Yeah.
That's where we're running.
No, it's all good.
But that's a really, yeah, if we're gonna go forward, we need to be
I
in
agree
that
with
meeting.
that, having
otherwise-
some quick follow-up, and also, having the best possible communication we can have between all sort of divisions, right? Like,
Yes.
on these issues, especially when it comes to something like MVP type grants, right? Where it relates to resiliency, we have to know the time frame with the lineup support letters or,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. We do need a little bit of better coordination with that.
Okay. So, I'll reach out to Kim and Nancy to find out, and John Eric, thank you, and if you have more info, all yours. And then maybe after that, Sarah, because it sounds like it might even be this week, we will proceed with talking to Woods Hole. Who has been the point person talking and coordinating with Woods Hole? I
it
was
was
not.
way back then, but I was sort of, I think, yeah.
Julie and myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sarah.
But can you guys coordinate at the right time to
Yeah.
contact them?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was a great idea. All right, anything else on that? 343. Okay. We don't have anything to report on the resiliency.
I don't think so. We
Checklist,
probably
I
need
never
to-
reached
we
out to
probably need
you.
Pick up our discussion
Yes.
of the, using it as a tool for folks before they apply, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
where
we
we-
need to
I
really,
think we need to, revisit like where we put it and how it's sort of reformatted to do that.
Yeah.
And that way we can give better. And over, however we're doing that, we can put it down.
okay. The last two things I have anyway, and Sarah, I know you're still typing, but, the Green Team Earth Day event, they're looking for, do you want to
Yes,
speak to that? When you have-
they reached out to us, I was just gonna pull it up and I lost it. They're doing a Earth Day event in April on, kind of sort of resilient soil management, that kind of stuff. They're looking to know if we'd be interested in collaborating with them on the community event.
It's FRSU, First Religious Society. in
Yeah,
Chatham.
Yes,
I think it's sustainable food supply, resilient soil, health.
Okay.
kind of thing, yeah.
Okay,
And are they just looking for us to help advertise it and get people to go? Or run it, or manage it, or?
I'm not entirely clear.
yeah, we asked that and it was feedback on the idea, if we had any suggestions for additional speakers, helping to promote it, closer to the date, possibly joint with the resiliency committee, so it's on the city website, that kind of stuff.
And they're talking about resilient soil.
Yeah.
So that sounds to me a lot like what we were talking about before with, the homegrown national parks, just like
Yeah.
the meadow
Well, it's
idea.
more like
low-
regenerative
low-mo.
farming practices and the speakers that they've got are, or they're talking to are with folks from Iron Ox Farm, a UNH professor.
We're talking about correcting soils from human impact over time and part right from agricultural
And
practices.
agricultural practices that,
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
tilling,
Yeah.
right,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
keeping CO2 in the soil
Right,
rather than
right,
tilling, which turns it up.
So I guess what, we wanted to highlight that if anyone's interested, and basically, especially among the volunteers of us, if anyone is interested in being a point person, getting more involved with that, here is a fantastic opportunity. I know I don't have time. I would if I
We
could,
can't.
and I think, but, no pressure, just if you don't wanna, raise your hand if you're interested, and Sarah can get you in touch with the right people. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. And the other thing, Sarah has asked, and I think it would be a good idea to issue another newsletter. We were doing it frequently as part of the last MVP grant. And so, I think January, like early next year, because there's a lot to talk about with the water supply ad hoc committee and a few other things, and so we'll be pulling something together if anyone wants to work on that with us. That'd be super.
I think Connie would write on that appointment.
I think Connie might.
I think so.
I think she should too.
And you think that was the other piece that, I'm sure they'll be looking for the community liaisons and that kind of thing, and
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then link you in that you attended. As
Yeah.
part of the, you were on the ad hoc,
yeah.
so that's the
Well, several of us were.
official, what's that?
Several of us members were, but yes.
Yeah, but I'm a city engineer as well, I'm more basis.
Righty,
Is that?
that's it. Anybody else have anything?
I was just wondering about the Indian community and with all the, now that there seems to be like a strategy for the large budget. Actually, the large pie, there's grant opportunity there.
right.
Is that?
So the
Yeah.
only one we submitted was the dam, and
Well,
because
that was, okay.
the sidewalls was another one that was submitted, but we.
Oh, all right, so that was good vote, great.
Yeah,
That got rejected,
what, the
The
dam?
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
That was the CZM grant,
That
Oh,
was a different,
that was
that was a different grant.
but then we
For
we
ECO
sent
one
another
stuff. It was,
letter.
it was in the list to be resubmitted for this year under the ECO
Oh,
one stuff,
so
right?
you guys, we have 3 projects?
We have
There were
4
4.
that we submitted, just for feedback. And
Just
so
for
that's why I'm like,
Oh,
we really
This is
need to
like
know that.
7
You-
grants.
wow.
This is like all of the state's grants.
Right.
There's 7 programs, so it was the dam, the sidewalls, the tree commission and parks with trees and adding shade and cooling. And what was and Cashman. I didn't even want, Cashman just kind of got submitted, but we had already received the feedback, so I
I
was
get
hoping
the
not.
feeling that people haven't absorbed this one stop, and
No.
Nancy should do a tutorial for the city
Mhm.
staff to
Mhm.
say, this is the new process.
Yeah.
You get to January to submit all these things.
The
You'll hear-
deadlines have changed.
Yeah, the
Right.
deadlines have been pulled in significantly for next year.
I will, I'll take that on in terms of reaching to the administration and Nancy. Coordination, that's gonna be our theme, I think.
There's 2 buckets of grants, I think, that are happening in that direction around the environmental category, and then there's actually that whole housing category, sort of green economic categories, and there's that similar parallel tracks of like the early, interest and the feedback and the actual cycle, and which things get, pros and cons, I think the whole spectrum of it, it's like a slam dunk, but it's an improvement necessarily, but I think, I get the rationale. But at the end of the day, I think Nancy kind of alluded to it earlier today, the part of that meeting, just the idea of, as we go through the year and we have the council sort of like revisiting, just the whole grant, how everybody's doing grants and
Good.
the coordination between, because we have to, talk about what's the prioritization, what's the bandwidth, people following up on each of their grants and so forth individually, but That also goes to some of these primary yearly cycles that we always have, like the housing category, and if we miss that cycle versus the environmental category here, if we miss the cycle, we're very interested in having difficulty getting a qualification in an area, et cetera. So depending on what point between departments divisions, we're not, or we're also taking the point, but everything else, if that's.
Right, and I think it goes beyond that, as well, 'cause it's not just it's not just city hall, essentially, there's so many commissions, so there's us, there's the water and sewer commission, we can go on and on, tree commission, because, and it's our health department, I mean, there's parts, and so there has to be some kind of just a way, an efficient way of communicating and getting feedback and coordinating, because there's a lot of brains out there that really have not been.
I think maybe would be good for some stuff.
Let's do that thing. Okay.
And she submitted, we were blasting emails back and forth today about the one that you guys submitted, letter of interest was for a grant. I'm 99% sure, right?
Yeah.
She's also asked soliciting people, department heads and whatnot, for the same program, but as a loan.
For the dam.
But for anything, she just asked anyone interested in this thing here, Eco One Stop, for a loan. I mean, to me, that's just another monkey wrench, like.
Someone from.
Are you sure it's not what Kim was talking about, the 0% interest? SLR?
Oh, well, that's
different.
that's been in place for decades.
Okay.
I only throw it out because we went back and forth, and all of a sudden Kim replied, I just moved that last month, but I think she's talking about a different thing, because the loan versus the grant. Just a monkey wrench for you guys. People aware there's two different things. I think I'm right.
All right, good to know.
I don't know why now they're into loans. I don't know.
They're desperate to,
Well, I
there's
mean,
too many
loans are-
applications.
loans are
Also a
fine.
Financial question for the city council
Yeah.
there as well, right? Because there's a repayment of something, not
Yeah.
just you getting the funds. That's
Yeah.
another type of financial decision.
Yeah.
It might be a 0%, which is which is the benefit,
Right, right.
which is
But still,
Yeah.
SRF funding. So you're talking about maybe SRF funding?
Yeah, it was probably, I have SLR on my brain, but it's probably SLR.
Well, yeah, because Kim was saying SLR and I was like, do you mean SRF?
Oh, that,
I think they're different.
okay.
Oh, yeah, they're very
They're
different.
very
SRF is standard in the industry
Yeah.
for public works.
Solving fund, yeah.
Yeah, sewer, water, and it's a no interest loan.
Right.
Everyone thinks it's free money.
No,
yeah, like the brown.
it's cheap money.
It's no interest. That's
It's better than,
calling Uncle Joe and saying,
Yeah.
hey, can you give me a
right.
zero interest loan?
Yeah. Anyway, okay, thank you for that, heads up. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Next meeting, January 21st, 2:30. Is 2:30 still good? Do you want to go earlier? 2:30 good? No, need it, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.